Thank you, Venu, and I thank Avni and Jamini for inviting me for this seminar to make comment on the paper that you have written. I think it's a very interesting paper, and I don't have very specific analytical comment on that, but I have got certain issues with regard to the overall transfer system that you have highlighted, and I broadly agree with that, and I'll just try to expand on some of them. One thing at the outset I must mention that I'm very happy to see that state's fiscal space hasn't reduced after the 14th Finance Commission's recommendations. That was the fear many states had, and it became also extremely political. But the one-year data analysis does show that it hasn't happened. Even a case which was worst affected by the transfer, like Bihar. So in Bihar it hasn't happened. I don't think it hasn't happened in other states. So that's an important finding. And now I would just want to step back, and I think we take this 14th Finance Commission report as it is, because it is given, it's cast in stone. I don't think anything can be done with the 14th Finance Commission report. But post 14th Finance Commission report, the changes that has happened in the interstate financial relations has certainly they are good, because it has given higher fiscal autonomy to the states, larger untied fiscal space to the states. But there are developments which also I think could have achieved better than what we are today in terms of centrally sponsored scheme. I think one of the major challenges with regard to centrally sponsored scheme that we are talking about is restructuring, but we are talking about is restructuring from the existing prism of centrally sponsored scheme. So we are not talking about anything new. We are saying, oh, we had 200, now it is 66, we'll reduce it to 50, and then have a share change from 60 to 40, 40 to 60, somewhere which is a national priority, 90 to 10. But we are not really talking about centrally sponsored scheme afresh. I think that is very important. Why do I say that? Because I was with the Finance Commission, and the idea of center intervened in state subject more than required was something which the states had mentioned, and because of the untied fiscal space increasing to 42%, that space for central intervention in state subjects certainly has reduced. But it also has to be recognized that there is a role for the central government to do state intervention on subjects which are of national importance or has externality reasons. So, and if we look at subjects which have national importance and externality reasons, I would certainly believe that if you have national importance, reasons for national importance, the central government wants to run scheme, it really cannot run 66 schemes. So if you have 66 national priorities, you don't have any priorities. So the point is that the scheme needs to be reduced, rationalized, restructured, so that the entire money that has gone to the states in terms of 42% tax remains with the states, and center also intervene in states which has got cross-state externalities and does it. It is not the center cannot intervene. I think that's the misconception that is there. Finance Commission was saying that it's all untied, center should not intervene on state subject. No, not that. And if we look at the total money that is going to the states, and it's a phenomena which actually we don't recognize, and it's a very good thing. Last 15 years, if you say, 65%, around 65% of central taxes are going to the states. So I think it's a huge sum that is going to the states. But the Finance Commission transfer was less. Now Finance Commission transfer has become 42%. Then all other grants that Finance Commission gives makes the total transfer 47%. The center is left with around 17 to 18% of the taxes still to spend at the state level. But if the number of centrally sponsored schemes are not reduced and restructured, I think we will be spreading resources thinly, and the outcome of those resources will not be as desired or as expected. So I think it is very important that there is a need for restructuring of the centrally sponsored scheme beyond what has been done in Niti Aayog through the Chief Minister's Committee. I think that is something which is fundamental to this changing center-state financial relation, but hasn't we haven't progressed much on that. And secondly, I think again, if we look at the Niti Aayog's report, I think that has implications for the transfers, non-finance commission transfer. It actually classified the schemes between core of the core and core schemes. Now the core of the core, the primary allocation is for National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which is something like 90% of the total core. And then you have core of the core, where the center share for the state has center share has gone down, state share has gone up, because they have to make these resources available from the higher tax devolution of 42%. So I think this is always subjective when we are talking what is, if education is not core of the core, but when NREA is core of the core, one can always question that. I think we need better analytical rigor when we are doing this kind of work. I think that is very important, and I hope we do it soon. And third issue, I think, which is very important, and the impact of finance commission transfer is asymmetric across states. Now, when we say that impact of finance commission transfer is asymmetric across states, I am not talking about the major states, mainland India, but I am talking about the hilly states, which earlier used to be called the special category states. Now we don't make a distinction between special and non-special category states post 14th Finance Commission, and I think that's a good thing. But the special category states have certain special problems. Now, one of the major problems is the money in the past they used to get from the Finance Commission used to be around 20% of the total transfers. Rest 80% used to come as plan grants. That means it used to come from the Planning Commission, Government of India. Now, when the non-finance commission transfer was restructured post 14th Finance Commission report, I think in our here also we don't talk much about the special category states. I think there the state, the impact on them would be very different than the general category states, because the weight of grant in total transfer was much higher compared to the weight of tax devolution. So, for example, a state which receives something like 20% tax devolution, rest 80% comes as grants, and the non-finance commission grant has been restructured, and its share in the total revenue is coming down. How would that affect their fiscal space is something, how would that affect their social sector spending? I think we have to look at it little more carefully, because I understand some of the states have been given special packages after 14th Finance Commission's recommendation, because they were actually having lower transfers compared to what it used to be before the 14th Finance Commission recommended. So that asymmetry requires to be addressed, and these states are also very sensitive state, and that part we have not really dealt with or talked about. In general, I'm not talking about the report. So I think for future research, and then finally, I would like to mention that today, if we look at the budget 2016-17, I think it's something very significant. The total central budget is around 19 lakh crores. And if we look at tax devolution and all the grant that goes to the states, it's around 9 lakh crores. So large part of the budget is being devolved, and which is a good thing. Now, in this 9 lakh crore, you have a tax devolution which is something like 5 lakh crores. Then you have around 3.5 to 4 lakh crores of rupees going still as plan grants, because there is a plan in operation. Now, from 17-18 onwards, this budget itself has announced that after 17-18, after the present plan is gone, we don't have a plan non-plan distinction. So we actually now need a new framework for non-finance commission grants before the next finance commission comes in. Now, how are you going to distribute these 4 lakh crores? Who will decide how much Bihar gets vis-a-vis Tamil Nadu, or how much Arunachal gets vis-a-vis Jammu and Kashmir? I think we don't have a clear understanding of that at the moment, and I think we also probably need to focus our energy how the non-finance commission grant needs to be designed and a mechanism is evolved, so that we don't get into a vacuum post the 12th five-year plan in terms of allocation of these non-finance commission grants, which are generally now plan grants, to the states. Because two factors will have to be taken into consideration, because we cannot have a restructuring which destabilizes state budgets. We also cannot have a restructuring which becomes completely ad hoc and arbitrary. So I stop at that and will be happy to take.
I think a very interesting paper, and of course Pinaki has given his perspective. So basically the 14th Finance Commission has moved the needle quite a bit, but it hasn't, in many aspects the needle hasn't moved. I think that is really the message we are getting. It has moved, yet in some things it hasn't moved. Partly is of course the preference of the states. You know, what have we found? We have found social sector spending up, but infrastructure also up. Now social sector spending up is not too much of a surprise, because salaries can't be reduced. Teacher salaries, health salaries, and also social sector spending continues to climb. But infrastructure is a preference call. I have a suspicion, confirmed quite a recently I went out to the field with the Common Review Mission of the Rural Development Ministry, that states have forsaken the social sector in preference of infrastructure, because they see the results. You have all seen Dr. N.C. Saxena's article on Manrega and PMGSY, for example. You extend that further, that argument. You saw that slide on PMGSY, 28% increase. So look at the impact. 28% increase in the funding, central funding of PMGSY. And what has moved? It was a 100% centrally sponsored scheme earlier. It is now 60-40 sharing. Not a murmur of protest. I didn't hear this in the Common Review Mission. 14 states were reported to have given their full share, and others are in the process of giving their share. So I see something happening in that space. I think there is, I think people are just frustrated at not being able to do too much on, say, on the education front. Something is happening there, which is unfortunate. I'm not saying for a moment that that is the way to go, but this is the reality on the field. On the other hand, you do see good roads. You see the roads, there is a demand for roads, and you see the consequences of that. So this is a bit of a shift which is taking place.
Roads are also winning them elections.
Although you see the other things are also winning elections. You have seen how West Bengal for the first time moving on to things which haven't happened there, has won elections there. Be it on the sort of schemes have been launched, the bicycle distribution or the girls' schemes, that has also had an impact. So we see both, but I see this thing on the social sector, especially on education. It's a little frustrating for someone who's been in education earlier, but this is something one picks up. The other is, of course, I mean, going forward, what can be done? There are certain national goals. For example, we have said we'll score 1 crore, how many houses? 1 crore houses, I think, on the PMAY. Now, if you have to do that, you have to construct 33 lakh houses every year. We are constructing 20 lakhs at the moment. So look at the jump. Similarly, we have a target on PMGSY which has gone up manifold. Now, if you just go by what is happening now, the present parameters, this falls on a few states to do this. In the short time that we have, next 2-3 years, unlikely to happen. In those states, if we have to keep these targets, there's a conflict between national targets, national goals, and state capacities also. So it cannot be dramatic. I think that Pinaki mentioned that it cannot be, the changeover cannot be very, very dramatic. I think that this stage, a lot of exciting further work needs to be done. I'm sure you're doing that. And notwithstanding the problems with the state budget. See, another problem is we don't know the story is also not fully told. How much of Manrega material money has not been given? There are states for 2 years, suppliers are waiting. I'm not talking about the wages that may have been paid. They're waiting for their...
even that is...
even that, but even the suppliers of cement or something may not have been paid because you don't have the money. So it's a little bit of a complicated issue there.
Thank you.